Yeah, we're 2 weeks in. We used last week like a mock bye week with the focus on Tulane, and then came back, brought them back Sunday and a walk through Monday, and then had full pads yesterday. Go shells today. We're practicing when the game time would be. So normally we're a little earlier a.m. We've kind of moved it back a little bit, and then we'll have a walk through tomorrow and fast Friday and get ready to go. So kids have been locked in, focused. Preparation's been pretty good up to this point.
Questions?
Hey,
Pete,
Pete,
what's kind of the
there
health?
was a report last night that said that you guys are bringing Frank Wilson on staff. Are you able to confirm that right now?
I mean, we're looking at a lot of guys, and obviously have some guys in the paperwork's going through, and some other guys that we've hired at other positions as well. But once we get through this game and all those things, then we'll address that 26 staff when we need to. But right now, the focus is on the players.
What's the health right now, Pete, of just the team overall? Anybody kind of waiting on, watching for, anything like that? Just how's that piece of it?
Well, we're pretty healthy. We're probably as healthy as we've been up to this point. We've been a little banged up in the back end, especially at corner, which we're expecting Kite to be available for this game, who wasn't, the last couple of games, which is a big piece for us. And then we'll have all our pieces on offense as well. So everybody that we've counted on up to this point will be available.
Pete Doug Joubert from ONSI Tulane. How do you compare this time around compared to the previous time when you played Tulane?
Yeah, I think it's two completely different teams. Obviously in week four, I think anytime when we both have some transfers from first year players, that's still early in the system. It's early in the year. So a lot of those guys have gotten better throughout it. Obviously with the quarterback situation, that's changed a little more two quarterback system earlier than they are now on a consistent basis. And at this point, we're playing a conference champion, a team that beat the ACC champion and a team that's playing at a really high level that's really well coached. So obviously you go back from a game planning standpoint from that first game and, what did you not use that you're anticipating that you needed to use? Are there any of those things still showing up, throughout the remainder of the year prior to this game and having plans for those? But I think it's a completely different team. I think their confidence, I think they're playing at a high level. I think the offense is really gelling. I think the quarterback's playing at a high level. The running back rotation's changed a little bit since we played them. The tackle's back who missed the first game versus us. That I think is a really good player as well. So we know we got our hands full. They always play extremely hard on defense. And, those two losses, a lot of that was based on the turnover margin and possessions gained. And we know taking care of the football is going to be incredibly important on offense. And we got to do a good job trying to take it away on defense. And then obviously critical downs in that first game. There's some key fourth downs on the positive side of the field that we made some stops, some of them based on our efforts, some of them based on a lack of execution on there. So, getting the ball back to our offense is going to be really, really important. But we know this is not no normal American team. They're a very talented team that is very well coached and are going to be excited to play.
And Coach, last one for me. There's a lot of excitement in Oxford, as if there isn't on a normal basis anyway, but there's even more excitement in Oxford than normal. How do you talk to your players about that to sort of keep them focused on this is just another game kind of thing?
Obviously, I mean, you talk about, the outcome, and results and all those things over process that you hear from every coach and all that. But our whole goal is we want them to be excited after the game. All right. We're not worried about the excitement before the game. We got to make sure our preparation is kind of like homecoming games in high school and all those. You get through all that bullshit during the week and you're worried about, the dance and the parade and all that. And then, there are going to be a lot of pissed off people at the dance and the parade. All right. So we got to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do throughout the week to prepare really well, to practice really well, to play a really good football team. And obviously, all these are 1-0 seasons, and like it has been, the remainder for the end part of both of us, right? If we were going to lose one late on either side, we probably wouldn't be in the position we're in. So it's no different from the player's perspective on that. That it's going to take our best effort from a preparation standpoint and execution standpoint, and we got to make the fewest amount of mistakes. So we're not getting caught up in the excitement of the fans and all that. Let's give them something to be excited about during and after, and we control that by our preparation and how we play.
Thank you, Coach.
Yep.
Pete, two guys you've that you were personally responsible for coming out of high school, Cam Franklin and William Eccles in their second seasons, both have had breakout years in a lot of ways. Where did they kind of start this year? I know William last year had a good run there early on in the year, but for you, how far have they come? Where's really been the growth areas for them, and what kind of players do you see them kind of blossoming into before their careers are over here?
Yeah, I think obviously we knew they were really talented coming out of high school. And I think that's one thing for us. We knew that we were going to have stability within the system and the system wasn't going to change. So I think it's really important getting those high school players, get them to teach them the system their freshman year, alignment assignment key. And then that second year, you can really focus on the technical aspect of the position, of the pad level and the hand placement, right, and the foot patterns and being productive. And I think they're both to a point now we can stop coaching defense. And then now they're looking at the tells from an offense and seeing a guard light and seeing the tight end heavy and seeing the back location and have the ability to anticipate plays before they come. So I think their production has increased dramatically because they have a good understanding of the defense, but more importantly, throughout the week of preparation, they can focus on the offense and understand what's coming based on the tells of the offense. But they both play extremely hard. They're both heavy-handed. Cam's a big guy to be able to play five technique and still give you a little speed to power in the pass rush game. And then Will inside is one of the better ones I've been around in a long time. And they both love football. They both practice extremely hard. They do things the right way. And obviously, both of them being Mississippi kids is a bonus on top of it. So, to be honest with you, they are who we thought they were, which is not always the case. And I think a lot of that is based on their mindset and how they've worked up to this point. And they've had guys in front of them last year and this year that show them the right way and how to do it. And I think that's really important. That group last year in that room was seeing the JJ Pegueses of the world and the Ivies of the world and all those guys do it the right way and set that expectation of what it's going to be like in that room. And for those guys to continue to carry that on for those guys is pretty special to watch. So both of them are going to have pretty big games for us on Saturday.
Is there one particular area defensively where you feel like y'all started maybe not the best of place, or that it took a lot of work that you feel like I've come along throughout the year, over the course of the year, and really are in a better place than you've ever been? Is there any specific spot or area that sticks out to you defensively in that way?
Well, the concern coming into the year when you have five new pieces in the back end, from a communication standpoint and understanding standpoint, and some of the things that we put on them and ask them to do week in and week out, which will change based on who we're playing. The understanding of that and the communication of that was always a major concern because we're not going to get stationary pictures from people, and they're not just going to line up and hey, here, what you see is what you're going to get. It's going to be a shift, a motion. It's going to be an alternative formation. Make these guys communicate. So I think the safeties have become more comfortable in the checks and the adjustments within the system, which is really, really important. But I would say the back end obviously was my major concern going into the season because the amount of new guys, first year players. That's not perfect, but I think it has improved and it's going to need to improve, this week. The front six, most of those guys that you're counting on really outside of P. Will were here, right? So they already had really good understanding of it, knew the expectation of it, knew the run tools and the front mechanics and all those things. So you weren't never worried about from the communication standpoint and the understanding of it. It was just at that point the execution of it, which it has improved. It's been a little inconsistent, but it's improved, especially later in the year. But I would say from the back end, super concerned with new guys giving up explosive plays. And so that a lot of that is communication when it's non-contested. So I would say the back end communication.
Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
Any other questions for Coach today?
Coach, have you used Joe Judge as a resource, being a former head coach up in New York and just his experience at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I'm not dumb enough to think I'm the smartest guy in the building. And, it's the first thing I learned from my old man as a head coach. You better hire smarter people than you. And, we're all product of our experiences. And I've been around a lot of incredible head coaches that have done it at an extremely high level. But it's definitely nice to be able to have a guy that's been in that seat to be able to bring in the office, right? And get their opinion on and see how they see it and all those things. So we try to use everybody in the building, whether it's in the defensive room, whether it's the offensive room. We're trying to use all of our resources. We want to keep it in-house first, and then somebody in the building doesn't know it, then we can start outsourcing other things. So got a lot of really good relationships with really, a lot of guys that are extremely successful in that position that I definitely bounce things off of, and he's one of them.
Thank you.
Anything else today?
Hey, Pete, I was wondering about Wydett Williams. I was talking to him yesterday about his adjustment from the Sun Belt level to the SEC level and how it seemed to go pretty seamlessly, at least from my perspective. What did you expect from him? And then if you agree with that, what was it about his game that allowed it to translate as quickly as it did?
So, he actually was Division II out of high school. He went to Delta State where I played at. And so Coach Cooley and I are good friends over there. So, when I first inquired about him, I called Coach Cooley first at Delta State. And he just talked about his wiring and his mental makeup and how much he loved playing football and how smart he was and what a great kid he was. Because you could watch the tape and see that he loves football. He's got a really good burst. He's violent at the point of attack. You look at his size, he's a bigger safety, and it's like, oh, okay, is he loose enough in the hips? Will he have the ability to play man to man? Does it translate from that conference to this conference? But once you meet him and you're around him, he's one of those guys that doesn't matter if it's ping pong, basketball, football, he's going to find a way to try to be the best guy on the field just by how he's wired. And so he prepares really hard, practices really hard. So it's not a surprise at all to me. It was something come in. We told him, we're not going to give you shit. You got to come in and earn it. We're going to give you an opportunity to compete like the rest of them. But he came in with a different mindset than a lot of these guys. I mean, he was super hungry, and he knew he had 1 year left. He knew he was rolling the dice going D2, to a mid-major and out of the SEC with 1 year, coming into a system that had already been in place. So, he knew he was kind of rolling the dice, but he's always bet on himself. And that's because of how he's wired and the type of kid that he is. So I'm not shocked at all that the success that he's had this year, because that's all him. He's put the work in to get it out. So super proud of the year he's had and will continue to have.
Is that something you can't really judge until you get in front of a guy, or even can't fully judge until you get him on campus and in practice and that kind of thing?
I think it's really important, to have relationships with the coaches of where they're coming from. And everybody will get to a point and you start getting upset, like this guy's leaving and all that. But I think a lot of the 1AA and mid-major guys now have taken on the JUCO mindset, right? Of like, hey, let's get really good players. Let's develop them. Let's let them play really well, and let's let them go get their payday and move to the next level. No different from us going to the NFL. And I think the guys that do that on a consistent basis have more success because they get better players. And they're their first ones that are taking your call. And like, coach, there's no doubt he's an SEC guy. I've coached SEC guys. This is who he reminds me of. And they want what's best for the kid instead of, feeling a certain type of way about and wanting to keep him another year that could continue, could affect his draft status and all those other things. So, the relationship that we had with guys at Delta State, where it was first at, and then Monroe, they were very helpful of understanding how is he in the room? How does he process? How does he learn? What is his work ethic like? Because you're exactly right. You can't find all that out in a recruiting weekend. You could try, you could put him on the board, you can pull his tape up, you can get him around your players, you can try to do those things. You can try to talk to some of his former players, some of his former coaches. But if you don't have a real relationship with them, they're going to sell them. No different than if a scout comes and asks me about somebody and I don't know him. Yeah, he's a great player. You should draft him in the first round. It makes us look better, right? I mean, like, there's got to be a relationship there that you kind of trust on that. But we had good relationships with the guys that had touched him before. And then if you meet his parents, all it takes is meeting his parents for a weekend. You know exactly what type of kid he is. And so he's just one of those kids that, walks in the room and kind of lights it up. It's got a high football IQ. So I knew, he's a kid. If he's anywhere for 2 years, he's going to be the captain of that football team based on how he's wired. And I know if you're tough and you're competitive and you love football and you got a high football IQ, you're going to play. I don't care where you go. If you stay long enough, you're going to play. So that's definitely why that, in my opinion.
Anything else today?
Hey coach, this is Taylor with HottyToddy.com. Speaking of Delta State, I was just curious if there are any experiences or lessons that you learned when you were the defensive coordinator in 2010 when y'all went to the national title game that can help you now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've been fortunate enough to be in 5 of those, to this point. And at that level, it's very unique because the offense has changed so drastically week in and week out. Because, at that level, you don't have a lot of players that are elite at everything. So you're going week one, you might play a 10 personnel team that's all no back, empty, tempo. The next week, it's double slot, triple option. All right. And then the next week, it's 21 personnel, right? And it's power, ISO, counter, and play action pass. So, being unique with your game plans there and having the ability to have to get it taught, right, in a very short period. But more importantly, I think you had to look at what guys can do, not what they can't do. And you had to identify roles and different personnel packages to get those guys on the field. And so I think, that level of football, made me from a coordinator standpoint not say, hey, this is what we do. This is who we are. No, that's going to change week in and week out, year in and year out based on who do you have and who are you playing against and how you match up. So I think the versatility within the package, that we have to this day is a big part of being at the Delta States of the world and being at that level, that you got to be very multiple, and you got to be able to rotate people, and you have to be multiple in your packages to be able to allow guys to get on the field, to be able to play winning football. So, that piece of it. And then I think, at that level, you don't care that the game's at 10 a.m. on ESPN, because that's when it was, right? I mean, that whole spot the ball mentality, right? You're riding a bus to Florence, right? The meals aren't the same. You're not getting the same gear, but the ability to go out and compete, right, and be the best at your level, regardless the network, regardless how many people are in the stands, regardless what hotel you stayed at, just that mindset of it, taught me a lot at a very early age, to where regardless whether it was there or Alabama or here, the game's the game. You're gonna have to spot the ball, and you're gonna have to execute, and you got to make the fewest amount of mistakes, and you got to be more excited to play than the other team. And if you do that, you'll win the game. And if you don't, just like that day, you're gonna get beat by a field goal at the very end. I've had a lot of good experiences, at Delta State and a lot of other places that I've worked.
And just as a follow-up, do you see any similarities or like character traits with this Ole Miss team in comparison to that 2010 team?
I do, because what people don't realize about that 2010 team, like there were 55 new players on that roster. So I took that job in December, and Coach Roberts had completely just gutted that team. And that was D2 before the transfer rule. So we had a lot of bounce backs, D1 to D2 and 2-year non-participation guys. So it was similar from the standpoint that was a brand new team. So you had the spring and the summer to try to get those guys to come together. And I think that's what's unique about this group. I mean, when you look at the starters that are making productive snaps on this team, most of these guys weren't here last year. And so I think, the way that they've gelled and come together and play for each other, I think is very unique in the time span that they've had the ability to be able to do that. And I think that speaks to the players' character and their competitiveness, and how well they get along with each other off the field, and how much they care about each other. So I think it definitely reminds me of that team. I thought I was a special buying in 2010 that came together really fast because of the right people. You had an elite quarterback, in Micah. You were talented on the perimeter receiver, just like we are here. We were gritty on defense. Weren't always the most talented roster, but we were gritty and gave ourselves, a chance to win the Gulf South and then play for national championship. So I think there's a lot of similar qualities in the team of how it was made, how fast it was made, and how fast they had to come together. That was pretty unique.
Any other questions?
On Monday, you mentioned letting your kids get excited for you. What do your family and your kids think about playing in a playoff game on Saturday, especially with you as head coach?
Well, I mean, my kids have been kind of spoiled. So my oldest is, 13. We've won at least 10 games the last 9 years in a row. So they're used to winning. They're used to big bowl games. I know when we first took the job, my middle one, which is Bentley, he wasn't super excited. He's like, Dad, like, wouldn't Alabama beat Ole Miss? Like, what are we doing? And, so they're used to winning. They like winning. But, the first question Bentley, my middle one, asks is, can he do the fire extinguisher on the sideline? The first question my little girl asks is, can I walk juice down the Rebel Walk? So I don't think they were worried about as much as winning the game and what bowl game it goes to all the other cool stuff that goes with it for the kids. But no, I put them through a lot. We moved them around a lot. So they've been super resilient. So for them to be able to get excited about, it makes me extremely happy.
I have to ask Pete, since you brought those two things up, but what about the fire extinguisher and the dog? What were they answering?
Well, I love, for a lot of this stuff, like I told the players, I was like, I see this is 2025. And I think routines are very important to players. And this is our responsibility to fulfill this season, right, with how it started. And so I'm letting a lot of those guys vote on it. Like, hey, if you felt like it had an impact on the game and it helped us win or lose, then let's do it. If it's something that you felt like didn't have an impact on the game and doesn't affect winning or losing and you don't like it, let's not do it. And so we're not trying to keep everything exactly the same. If it didn't impact winning or losing, we're not going to do it. And if there's some things that I feel like do impact winning that we haven't done, we're doing right now, and changing some of those things. But To me, that's about the players. That's not a decision that I'm going to make and take away something that they enjoy, right? That they're used to, or make them do that they don't want to do. So, we've got a leadership council for our group. Every championship team I've been a part of is player led. And I think that's the good thing about this team. A lot of our best players are our best people that have the ability to make good decisions. So, a lot of that's going to be up to them. And then there's some things that I've added and some things that I've taken away that I know don't affect winning or losing. All right. And we're not going to leave up to them. But some of the game day stuff, I'm definitely leaving up to them, from an environment standpoint. Do they feel that affects them in a positive way or it doesn't?